Everyone, we're just going to give another second here while everybody kind of can join us. If you are not already, make sure that you're muted. We have a big crowd today, so we want to make sure that everything goes smoothly. There'll be some options for when we can have you all raise your hand to participate if you feel the need. And uh, also making use of the chat. So if you, I think many of us at this point in the last few years have become very familiar with um, Zoom, but just to let everybody know that there's the chat button at the bottom of your screen. If you're on a laptop, might be in your three lines in the corner of your iPad that you have to click on. But you'll use that chat in a couple points during the annual meeting when we start that formal process. If you need to, hopefully you won't because everything will be running smoothly, but please do feel free to jump in and use that at any point. I just want to apologize. Formally, I'll just say that I'm up here. I'm going to rename myself in just a second. I've had part of the reason why we're letting you in a little late is I've had some technical difficulties here. And I just need to rename myself and we can get kind of started here. Okay. So for those who have not, in this case, seen my face, I first want to apologize. My part of the reason why we got started late is my video has been weird and wonky this morning. So this is roughly what I look like, but you will not see me in action and movement. So I apologize because I do have a big part in this show, but it's going to be a static picture. But you can always see gallery view and look at the faces of a bunch of your fellow AAWMI members from around the state. I love seeing this at this point in the morning. I'm Amy Shamrow. I'm your president as of last July. And I'm very excited to be with you all this morning for our annual meeting. For those who might not have read all the correspondences, during COVID, we had decided as a state that every other year we would do a virtual annual meeting and meet in person. So first mark your calendars because next spring we'll be in person again. We hope to see many of you in person with us so we can kind of come together and see each other face to face. But in the meantime, we are coming together virtually this year. For those who have participated virtually in the past, we're going to do it slightly different, but not really, because we don't want you to feel like you're going to be on Zoom staring at a computer for the next 3 hours. That's not the intention. But rather than just meeting and just going through the annual meeting script and doing the perfunctory things, we are going to we are very fortunate to have Shannon Wolf from National joining us, and I'll turn over to her in a moment. And then we're going to go through the annual meeting portion and install our officers for next year and all the other good stuff that we do with that. And then we're also going to hear from our new, and I use that in air quotes if you could see me right now, DEI person who is Leslie Carpenter. She would have been appointed at the meeting last year, but we didn't have anybody, so she kindly stepped up to take on the role in the interim between last annual meeting and this one. So we'll have her speak to us a little bit after the formal meeting just to kind of introduce herself, but also as I've been speaking at branches, that does seem to be a very main concern for us in the last 6 to 8 weeks or so. And we'll probably be for another, I think I saw it was like 1,132 days. Um, and so just talking a little overview, but we will be engaging a lot more with Leslie as AW of Michigan and offering out different programming and information to you in the coming months, but wanted to have that as a separate thing from the annual meeting because she was supposed to be joining us last year and or I shouldn't say her position should have been joining us last year, but she kindly stepped up after. So we want to do that a little separate of the annual meeting at the very end. So when we adjourn the meeting, please hang out for another minute or 5 minutes-ish. So again, this won't be much longer than the previous annual meetings, but we did want to add a little bit more because it is a chance for all of us to gather. So having someone from National join us, we're very grateful. Having a little bit of an information from our board and then taking care of the meat of the business in between. So that's kind of how we're going to run things today. It looks like we've got a pretty good crowd gathered this morning. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us here. Um, it's not quite a beautiful day here in Traverse City, but it's going to be, and we have some sun and it's not raining like last night. So I hope you all are looking forward to a lovely Saturday too. So I will get this show on the road. And with that, I wanted to formally introduce, as I've been kind of doing a rundown housekeeping here, but formally start our programming for this morning and welcome Shannon Wolf. For those of you who don't know, she's Managing Director and Chief of Staff for AAW National. She's been with the Brookings Institute, which I think many of us are at least mildly policy interested, if not full policy wonks. And we're very familiar with Brookings. She's had a 20-year career in nonprofits, including Red Cross. She's worked with Harvard Medical School. She has an economics degree, which I attempted and did not make, so I know how hard that can be, as well as a master's degree in government from the esteemed University of Virginia. So with that introduction, I'm going to hand the spotlight over to Shannon Wolf. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Amy. I really appreciate that introduction and the opportunity to be with you all this Saturday. I love being able to connect with members out in the field when I can and on Zoom or any other virtual platform when I can as well. There's a couple of really familiar faces to me here, Jan Van Gass, Eva and Leslie Carpenter. Some really amazing folks that I've had the real privilege to work with in my time at AUW, which I've been here for a little over 7 years now. And I have with me today Brisket the cat in the back. He's joining us. He's behaving for right now. If that changes, I will go on mute and kick him out, but we're going to hope that he can behave himself this morning. So I am really excited to talk to all of you today because we know what uh, is going on in our country right now. And I think it really reinforces the importance and the need for organizations like AUW and all of the work that you do. Thrilled to have Amy talk about policy and Michigan's uh, passion for that. That's a really important area of where AUW is headed and is right now. So we're going to talk about a couple of things this morning. I'm going to give you a rundown about what's going on at the national office. We're going to be launching a new strategic plan in a couple of weeks. And so I want to talk through and give you all a preview of what that's going to look like. And really where we are in this moment is a really important moment in time. I think we're all feeling a lot of emotions. I feel that every day. There's a lot of things that are really scary happening in this country, particularly around the issues that we care about. Amy already mentioned diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's really important, and we're seeing that being attacked in multiple levels, and really attacks on every level of education right now. And I know you're all feeling that in Michigan as well. I was reading about, University of Michigan's closing of their DEI programs. And that's obviously really related to this larger issue of federal funding, right? We're seeing funding cuts all over the place. We're seeing lawsuits related to funding cuts, but those issues are interrelated. I do have some sympathy for colleges and universities who are put in these positions of saying, if we do this thing, then we are not going to have funding anymore. And we're not talking about a small amount of money. I think you all know, right? This is entire university systems. In many cases, there are university systems in areas where those are the main employers in those cities. So this has really far-reaching effects. And it can feel a little bit like, we don't have much power in this time. But we do. We have power as individuals, and we have power as an organization and as a community of branches and states. And even in Michigan, you're seeing the power be used, right? Your attorney general has been very active in terms of fighting for some of these things. I think I was reading there was your attorney general was on a lawsuit yesterday, I believe, about DEI efforts in K through 12 and some requirements that the administration is putting on K through 12. So there is hope here. And if you take nothing else away from today, I hope it is that you can feel how much we value the collective impact of the organization as a whole. What I do at the national office in Washington, D.C. is a very small part of what our impact is overall as a network of people who are in communities working on these issues day after day. So we're going to talk a lot about that today because that is a main focus of the strategic plan, and it's really focused on how we can strengthen our collective impact and strengthen branches and support them in ways that they want and need to be supported. So let me go ahead and throw up put on screen. I will not say throw up, on screen, some slides here. Let me get over here and do my thing. Here we go. And I do want to leave some time for questions at the end as well, because I would be very happy to, come on, there we go. Okay. Can you see just the slides or are you seeing like a different thing?
We're seeing the entire
Okay.
presentation picture,
Are you
not
seeing a
just the
slide that
slides.
says next slide, no notes?
No, but we
Okay.
do see yeah, we can see the whole of PowerPoint as just opposed to just the PowerPoint presentation.
You aren't in slideshow
Thank
presentation
you. That
mode.
was what I could not think of.
I
Slideshow present. You're
see.
not in presentation mode.
Okay. Let's try that again. Come on. I don't know.
And
It's not behaving right
I
now.
I
I
want
guess
to
we're all having
invite
problems.
before the
Right.
Q&A, she I just want to say if you have some questions you want to put in the chat, we'll kind of watch that too. And if Shannon doesn't get to all of that,
Yeah.
we can also prompt those at the end too. So
Great. Well, the slides are, we don't care. It doesn't really matter. I'm happy to just talk.
okay.
And I think you all understand the moment that we're in. You
And then
probably don't
you
need to
can
see it on the
show the
slide.
slides as you were,
Yeah, we
though,
could see
because
the slides. We could also just see though the entirety, the what the
it
screen
was
looks
over
like
to
for
the
you.
left.
I see. So you were just seeing it in non-display mode. I gotcha.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's okay. I actually think having a conversation, just people to people is maybe a little bit better. Sometimes I think we're a little too, or I am a little too dependent on my slide decks. So let's talk a little bit about where we are today. So the organization, we've been really focused on how we can be relevant and respond in, let us see the slides. Okay. Let's do it here. Let's see. Let's try that one. All right.
There. Oh, now it's perfect.
Oh, well, there you go. Great. Perfect. All right. So let's see if I can move it along. Here we go. So what we've really been focused on is making sure that AUW is focused in this moment. We've been talking about this as a national staff, as a board of directors, and then with a lot of member leaders over the past 6 months to a year, right? We knew that the election was coming up and that we wanted to be prepared for that. And so because of the outcome of that election, obviously in our country, we're seeing a lot of changes and a lot of threats to the things that we really value as an organization. We've made a statement on the Department of Education, as you can see here, but we're really, really, really focused on education. It's not that we weren't focused on education before. We've always been that, right? AUW, since its founding, has been very, very much really founded in education as a means to advancement, economic security, opportunity, right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about this when I talk about the strategic plan, about how we're sort of tweaking that in this moment. But we know that this is a really important moment in time, and it's not just education itself that's under threat, but also a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. I do want to say that AUW is in a unique position in that we do not depend on federal funding to fund our organization. Our organization is funded by its members, right? We have some donors who are non-members. And we are lucky to have a pretty large endowment that funds our fellowships and grants work. It doesn't fund anything on the member side, but it funds our fellowships and grants work. What that allows us to do is not be in the same position as University of Michigan, right? As a college or university that gets a lot of federal funding that then is put in maybe some difficult positions or is subject to some of the regulations that we're seeing being enforced right now. So we are not in that position. Our branches are not in that position, and our states are not in that position. And so that gives us some opportunity to do things in a little bit of a different way. We continue to do a lot of advocacy work through the national office. We have been fighting for gender equity for a really long time, and we don't anticipate stopping that anytime soon. This is a really scary moment in time, and we don't know what's going to happen. But I do know that if we do not do anything, or that we mute ourselves in this moment, we will not be really defending the principles and the values of the organization. Civil rights are really under attack right now, in a variety of ways. We've seen things come out basically weekly. We know that the Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Education has been drastically underfunded. Many regional offices have been closed. Just this last week, there was another executive order on something called disparate impact, which basically means if you have a disparate impact of something related to, let me put it this way. Disparate impact means that if you have a big discrepancy in representation, say, that is enough to sort of open an investigation and to see if there is bias or discrimination in that particular situation. Oftentimes it's used in terms of hiring. So if I'm hiring and it just turns out that 98% of the people I hire are white, then there was a mechanism for using disparate impact to then make a claim. That has now been put under attack by the executive order this week. And that's really important because basically it puts another layer of burden on people who are underrepresented and maybe subject to discrimination. So it's an example of something where we're seeing over and over and over again, new things come up to try to really undermine our work in terms of diversity, in terms of equity, and in terms of equal opportunity. And I think that the terms diversity, equity, inclusion themselves have even been sort of misused. Now, DEI is just said as DEI, right? And it is said in a way that where people may not actually know what that means anymore. And so part of the work that we want to do, and that I've been working with the Inclusion and Equity Committee on, and the Diversity Officers Group, is ways that we can sort of think about those terms and take them back. And not sort of say in this moment, yeah, you're right, DEI, all DEI is bad, and move on. We are an equity organization. If equity becomes something that we can't do, that's very troubling for our organization. And I don't think when you really get into the meat of what these terms mean, that that is what people think. I just think that the shortened phrase itself, DEI, has been misused in this moment. So we're also seeing, as you know, a lot of DEI work on campuses really being under attack. And campuses are responding in different ways. Some are saying, yep, we're going to close every single piece of DEI that we have. Others are resisting some of that. Others are changing their language. It really depends on the college or university. And sometimes that does impact what a branch might be working on locally with the colleges and universities that they work with. Some branches are able to really show support and say, great, we're so supportive of you keeping your DEI programs. Others are in areas where that's being completely rolled back, so the response is going to be different, right? So it's another example of how we have branches in a lot of different areas, and even in some more quote unquote liberal states, if you're in a more conservative area, we're having branches who are having a really hard time connecting with their colleges and universities or convincing them that DEI programs are still valuable. And so I don't want us to think that this is sort of a red state, blue state problem, because I don't actually think that's true. I think there's a lot of different areas where, because we have a branch network that is so focused locally, that can really vary depending on where you are. All right, let's talk a little bit about the strategic plan that I'm very excited about. It'll be launched officially on May 13th, which is only in a couple of weeks. And really what we wanted to do with the strategic plan is sort of just restate what the national office is working on and what our focus is. And this doesn't look that different from the work that we've been doing, but we thought it was really important to just restate and be really clear about what we want to be as an organization. We are doubling down on our mission to defend equity and to support women in higher education. So you're going to hear me talk about higher education a lot, and you're going to hear me talk about collective impact, because that's a huge part of the strategic plan. So there are really three priorities within the strategic plan. The first is to be very, very, very upfront and blunt about our direct funding for women in higher education. At the national office, right, we do $6 million in grants for women to pursue different programs, mainly in graduate level education. But that's not the only piece of this, right? We know we have a vast network of branches, and a lot of them do scholarships at the undergraduate level. We don't compete with branches by doing scholarships at the undergraduate level. We really see that as a complement, right? We also know that branches are doing a lot of work in that K through 12 space. So we really look at it as sort of a pipeline, right? And having branches that are part of our network that are working on K through 12 undergrad, and then we focus our grant making and our fellowships on graduate level education. In previous strategic plans that we've had, it's not that that work wasn't there. It was just not really emphasized in the same way. We were really focused on pay equity, right? You saw a lot about Work Smart and Start Smart and salary negotiation and things like that. We still have those programs and we're still focused on those issues. But we really, at this moment in time, thought that we needed to say higher education is still very important to our country. It is why our organization was founded. It is important to women and their economic security, and we need to be blunt and say that and be proud to defend that. The second priority is around our advocacy work. And the way we're talking about that is to removing barriers to success in education and in the workplace. And so this is where you're going to see a lot of our advocacy work. I would say the biggest pivot of the strategic plan is to focus our policy work on the education space. And it's not, again, that we're not focused on pay equity. Pay equity is a part of success in education and the workplace, right? We want women to be equally paid if they work on a college campus or they are working in private or public sectors. It's just not going to lead our efforts. And it really was, pay equity was one of our leading issues in the past couple of years. So now we're pivoting that to higher education, defending the Department of Education, defending the rights of women on campus. That's particularly important with Title IX and all of the attacks on Title IX that we're seeing, and defunding in a lot of ways, which is a pretty easy way to stop people from being able to make Title IX claims, is when you just don't have anybody in the office to answer the phone, right? So our advocacy work is pivoting a bit. You've probably seen that if you've been in any spaces with Megan Cassell, who's our head of policy, been in any trainings, you'll see that we're really focused on education. Again, pay equity is still part of our platform. It's still part of the public policy priorities. We're just not emphasizing that as much in this moment in time. And then the third priority is really about aligning national and branches to maximize impact of the organization overall. This is a really, really important piece of the plan. And that's one of the reasons why we decided to make this its own pillar of the plan, is because of what we're hearing from branches and states all the time, right? Which is that folks want to have more connection. They want to have more support from the national office. How can we make that happen, right? How can we collectively work together towards common goals? We have 600 branches, AUW, which is a great number. But if every single branch and the national office all work on different things, we don't have as much impact collectively as that if we're all working on similar things. So part of this work is really about trying to strengthen those connections and trying to be more supportive. Sorry if you can hear brisket in the background. Be more supportive of branches. So what does that mean? So hold on one second. We're just gonna, oh, look what you did. Oh my goodness. Well, that was fun. All right, let's see if we can get it back again. I told you he was a troublemaker.
We like a little impromptu show.
I leave off a strategic plan. Here we go. Okay. Great. All right, we'll see. Okay. Come on, behave yourself. Oh my goodness. Woo. All right. So in terms of our branch alignment, what we're really looking to do is a couple of things. The first is we really want to understand what branches are doing and what they need in terms of support. And so you'll see us sort of talk a lot about the annual survey. We just launched it on April 1st. It used to be in the fall, but the spring ended up working out much better for branches, so we moved that timing. That's a really important mechanism. We will really want all branches to be filling out that survey. One, it helps us understand and be able to articulate the collective impact of AAUW. We can't provide services and try to meet folks where they are if we don't know what they want, right? And we don't know what they need and we don't know what they're working on. So that's a really important piece for us. The other piece is around mission-based work. We really, really want to see every branch doing mission-based work. And not every branch does. There are a lot of branches who have social aspects to them. That's great. I actually think one of the strengths of our branch structure is that you're providing that community to folks in your local community. Um, but there are some branches that may not be working on mission-based projects of any kind. And so what we really want to do is have branches be working in some way on mission-based work. And the survey helps us understand which are working on mission-based work and which are not. And we're really broad about our interpretation of that at this point. It doesn't do us any good to sort of come in and say, all branches need to be doing these two things. It just, that's not the structure that we have. It's not realistic to the world that we live in. And it's not probably realistic to you meeting your local community needs. Really the benefit of our affiliate structure is that you know what's best for your community. I don't know that. I live in Maryland, right? Like, I don't know what's best for Traverse City, Michigan. You know that best. And so we really want to be able to provide support for you to be able to do the things in your local community that you need to do, but it does need to be related to the mission of the organization. And then the last piece of branch alignment is really around support of the national office in terms of financial support. And the reason for that is because we keep hearing from folks that they need more support, right? We'd love to have another person in Connect, would be great, right? I would love to do that too. I want to be able to provide that support, but unfortunately, we are not getting enough financial support into the office to make that happen. So in order to add a person in Connect, I then would have to take somebody out of another area like policy. And we don't want to be doing that, right? We want to be able to strengthen all parts of the organization. So that financial piece is really important to us. And a big part of that is because I think a lot of folks think the dues cover the full footprint of member support. And they don't. Dues only cover about half of what it costs to support membership as a whole. So the rest of that has to be paid for by contributions to the organization. So that's why you get a ton of solicitations from us, right? But only 17% of members give to the organization. So we have a lot of folks out there who I think believe that their dues are covering it. We have a lot of folks who don't pay dues anymore, right? We have a lot of honorary members. We have a lot of lifetime members. And so we really do need to count on contributions from folks like that because they aren't paying dues and in many cases aren't paying contributions either. But the need to support branches is still there, right? So we're hoping with the strategic plan and with branch alignment that we can help be able to support you in the ways that you want to be supported. So we have what we like to call our 5 calls to action. And this is really like how we are meeting the moment right now. And let's go through them each one by one. So the first call to action is join, and join can really mean a number of different things. And honestly, I would encourage you to use this type of framework when you're talking about folks in your local community. If you're recruiting members to the branch, this is a really great way to talk about what you and your branch means to the community and what they can do when they come into your branch. This might be different for every branch, right? Your join, give, learn, share, act might be different for, the branch in Detroit versus branch in Traverse City, right? But thinking through this type of framework actually could be a really great project for your branch board or your branch membership as a whole. So when we think about these terms from a national perspective, when we think about joining, we think about joining as members, right? That one seems pretty obvious, I think, but join can mean a lot of different things. So it may be join us for an advocacy day, join us for a lobby day, join a branch meeting, right, on a DEI topic. It can really mean a number of different things. So, it can mean join as members
Excuse me,
yeah,
can you switch the slide, please?
did it not switch?
No. Let's see. It's bad. It's not in presentation mode right now, so maybe you have to manually do it.
Okay, try it again. How about now?
There we go. Now it is exactly on it. Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for your patience.
We're all there to this morning.
So join, I think hopefully we can all understand in terms of we'd love to see more members, right? I think we can all agree on that. The number one thing that we hear from the national office from branches is we want to be able to recruit more members. And so join is a way to do that, right? Learn. So I think learning can be viewed quite broadly. You can learn about how to advocate for a policy issue, but you can also learn from a lot of things that we have available at the national office. So when I'm off this, I'm going to put a couple of links in the chat. If you haven't had an opportunity to participate in the webinar series that we just wrapped up, it was 4 webinars. I would recommend you check those out in terms of the recordings, really relevant to this time. There was a webinar on from our advancement committee. There was a webinar that I did on scholarship funding for colleges and for undergraduate scholarships that was really interesting. And I got a lot of really good feedback. And I think we had a really great discussion on that. There was a policy webinar within that. So we really would recommend that you take advantage of the resources that we have on the website. We have a lot of what we call plug and play programs in the DEI toolkit that are really programs you could do on day one with your branch if you haven't done them already. And what we're seeing a lot in terms of DEI in particular is a need to just kind of come back to the basic tenets of what DEI means and what the words diversity, equity, and inclusion actually mean. There's a lot of really great resources on the website and the DEI toolkit in particular on how to have those conversations and how to set up those types of meetings. So definitely check that out in terms of learn. In terms of share, we would love for you to share information on AAUW. And so that can be sharing an opportunity, right? You can share the opportunity for folks to sign up for 2-Minute Activists, for example, with local folks in your community. It's a really great way to start people thinking about AAUW who may not yet be ready to commit fully to a branch meeting, right? Or to come to a branch activity. Sometimes I think what I hear from branches is, we brought somebody in and they couldn't commit to time, so then we just never saw them again, right? There's some other ways that you can engage folks over time where they can sort of participate in ways that are meaningful to them, that maybe in a year or two when their lives get to a different point, they can, sorry about that. My husband has apparently triggered the alarm on one of our cars. Okay. Yay, Saturday mornings. I would also love for you to think about sharing information that you may be seeing in Mission and Action, or if you're a member leader in Membership Matters. Not everybody reads the email that comes from National, and we know that, right? Folks are much more likely to read or sort of engage in the information that we send out if they're getting it from a peer. So if there's something really that really resonates with you in Mission and Action, talk about that at your branch meeting. Talk about that at your state meeting. Think about ways in which your branch can utilize the information in Mission and Action and Membership Matters to do more work locally if that's something that feeling like, hey, we've been, working on X, Y, and Z for a little while now. We want to try something new, or we want to be more, in tune with the moment right now. There's a lot of great information in those newsletters, but it doesn't get to everybody. And I can't make somebody open an email, right? So in a lot of ways, they're more likely to open it if they get it from Amy, right, than if they get it from Shannon, who they don't know at all, right? And then we come with ACT, right? ACT is really about doing something in this moment in time. And ACT can mean come to a branch meeting. It can mean help us write an op-ed locally in support of what our Attorney General is doing in terms of higher education. It can mean signing up for 2-Minute Activists. It can mean a lot of things. So again, think about what that word might mean for your branch and what you would tell somebody who wants to join the branch or is thinking about joining the branch. What would you tell them about each of these words? And then, of course, give. As I mentioned, giving is really important, and we do want to meet the needs of branches, but we can't do that without financial support from our branch and state members. Okay, is everybody seeing a picture now? Okay, I'm gonna go for it then.
Sorry, yes, I was
Yes.
talking and I was
Perfect.
muted.
Great. Good. So what you're seeing here, this is our lobby core. This is our office in DC. This is what it looks like. This is where I go every day. And this is our lovely lobby core. They go up to Capitol Hill, mostly branch members who live in DC, Virginia, and Maryland. Although if you happen to be in DC for whatever reason, and you would like to either come and visit us at the office or participate in a lobby day, they do it every month. And it can be a really powerful way to engage with your elected officials. I think you all are aware of that. I'm sure you do a version of this or something related to advocacy within Michigan. But I actually don't know if we have anybody from Michigan on the Public Policy Committee. That would be something that I'd love for you all to consider moving forward. 2026 is going to be a really important election year, particularly for Michigan, right? I believe you have a governor and one of your Senate seats too, I believe, will be up as well. And so, the midterms are going to be all eyes on that, I'm sure. And the work on that gets started pretty soon. So the Public Policy Committee at the national office is made up of branch members. And it really helps inform our work on how we can best support members in terms of their policy activities. So if you have interest in that, I would love, love, love to see somebody from Michigan participate in that, or have multiple people. All right. So oftentimes we get asked, who do I call about what? Here's some email addresses that you can use. If you have a fellowships and grants specific question, we have a specific email that is checked by our fellowships team. Advocacy team has a separate email. Obviously, you all know about Connect. And then if you want to reach Gloria Blackwell or I, you can email executive@aauw.org. And I will also put my personal email in the chat as well. You can always email me. And I try to get back to everybody as soon as I can. So, don't hesitate to reach out. I tend to manage a lot of the sort of governance aspects of our branch and state work. And so if you have a question about any of that kind of thing, bylaw stuff usually goes to the governance committee, but I'm happy to weigh in on stuff like that. Or if you just want to talk about the work that your branch is doing, I'm always happy to have a conversation about that. We're really, really focused on making sure that branches are successful, particularly this year and in the next couple of years as part of the strategic plan. And the only way we know that is if I'm having conversations and communication with folks. So don't be a stranger. And last, I just want to say thank you to all of you. This is a really difficult time in our country, but we do not have to go down quietly. And I hope if you take anything else away from today, it is that we are in a position to fight back, and we are doing so. And so I hope that this was helpful today, and that we can all move forward collectively and, not see rollbacks to things that we all hold very, very dear.
Thank you for that presentation. And I know you said you'd be willing to take questions.
Absolutely.
But first, I just want to say personally, I really appreciate that strategic plan update and kind of those bullet points of where we're changing our emphasis. I'm on the quote younger side, in my middle age here of joining back when we talked a lot about pay equity. And I know I personally have struggled in the last couple of years of elevator speech of what AAW focuses on. And so I'm really excited that the strategic plan, even if nothing's fundamentally changing, is helping us to redefine how we speak about AAW. And I think to your point about recruitment, that's super important to have those. We're hosting our local branch here in Traverse City hosts the Athena International Awards for our community. And so when we have that speech on the 8th of May coming up here, that's going to be a great bullet point to talk about of, here's what we do. We advocate for education and pay equity and da da da. Like having those little tenets there and being able to say we're flexible in the face of current situations is, I think, really going to be helpful for us to all have and see what national rolls out in support of that, I'm sure, as far as like visuals
Yeah.
and shareable items. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents there. Sorry everybody, I'm jumping the line, but that's really, that I thought that was very great to see and to hear about in this kind of format where everybody in the state meeting here can hear it too.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, and just what you can expect in terms of resources. There will be some messaging talking points that will be provided for all branches and states. We're going to provide some newsletter content that you can put into newsletters that you can obviously edit, but we'll have sort of the bulk of it. But the talking points I think are really important because it's going to have that little like elevator pitch, right, is what we call it. And a really short, succinct way of talking about the organization. You can also use the mission statement, but sometimes the mission statement is a little broad for folks. And it much put anything under gender equity, right? So we really want to refocus. And so the messaging will be with that and focused on that. There's also going to be a couple of different one-pagers. There's going to be a recruiting one-pager. We added a couple of new funds for folks to support a public policy fund and defending higher education fund. Greatest needs is really important, and I'm sure you've heard us talk about greatest needs. That is the main thing that we want to fundraise for, but there are some people who just refuse to give to greatest needs, to be honest with you. And so these funds allow folks to give to a specific area like public policy. And we're hoping that that just offers a little bit more opportunity for folks. So there'll also be some resources on that. So as we go through this, if folks have suggestions about other things that would be helpful to them when you're out locally in the community trying to recruit members, or what would be helpful to you as a state or branch leader to communicate with your state or branch members, definitely let us know. We're really open to, we want to meet your needs.
That's great. So I see really quick that we have Jan Van Gass's hand up. I also see Judy just put a question in the comments here or in the chat. So what I'm going to do, because Jan's hand was up first, is calling her in just a moment. But also, if you do have questions, just to let everybody know, we didn't go through this at the top. Please use the raise hand feature. There's enough people on here. We can't just see if you're physically raising your hand on screen. So right at the bottom of your screen, if you're in most settings, there's the react. And if you click on that, there's the option to raise hand, and that'll let me know you're there. If you're on an iPad, there might be the three lines that you have to click and see your options, and that might be where your reaction is to see the raise hand. But just please try to do that formally or put them in the chat. I'm watching the chat. Leah's watching. Leah Monger, our state services person, is watching the chat as well. So we will do our best to see it. And with that, I will hand it over to Jan, but please cue, as it were, and raise your hands or drop things in the chat for us, please. Go ahead, Jan.
Mine is just a quick, I wanted you, Shannon, to plug the webinars that are coming up too on the strategic plan.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
So all members will get that. All members have not gotten an email about the May 13th.
I guess I have already.
You did, because they're doing a special leader briefing a week before to make sure that all our state and branch leaders have the tools that I just talked about. But you'll be getting an email for a webinar on May 13th that should come out, I don't know, Monday or Tuesday of next week. So we'll have the presence on the website that day. You'll get an email that says, hey, this is our new strategic plan, please come check it out. And then that webinar will be that night, and that'll be recorded and put on the website as well if you can't attend.
Great. Those are some good connections. Right now in the chat, we have a question from Judy Pollock. She says, how do we approach people who are supporters of the current administration? Although most of the members lean liberal, there are some who lean fairly far right, and many of them have dropped out of AAW in the past few years.
Yeah, it's a really great question. And what I always say, and we get a lot of questions about, like, what about the rallies, right? What if I want to go to a protest? How would I do that as a branch? Do I do it as a branch, right? Or do it as an individual, things like that. And this kind of falls underneath that. And what we talk about is policy, not people or political groups, right? So the way that we can do that is to focus on our policies that we really care about. I don't think that believing in higher education is really only for one party or another. I just don't believe that. I think that people in this country do still value education, and education can have a broad meaning too, right? It doesn't have to mean, strictly a four-year university. There's a lot of branches that do scholarships for non-traditional types of education, and that's all fine. But I think a lot of people do still understand that education as a means to economic opportunity is still really important. So I would say focus on the issues, right? Our policy platform still includes reproductive rights. That is not going to change. So if somebody says, I cannot join an organization that is for reproductive rights, we might have to say goodbye to them. But I think if you focus on education in this moment, there is a lot of support that is across party lines for the types of things that we are focusing on. I think DEI is one of those topics that really does kind of spark for people, can spark for people immediately, like, oh, we just can't be involved in anything related to equity because that just means, something crazy. So that's where I would say really utilize the resources on the website and really think about what is best for your community and what does the community really need? Is it really just, okay, this is what equity really means to us. It's about equal opportunity, right? And when you start to talk about equal opportunity, it can break down some of those barriers. If you talk about a certain politician, if you, are talking about, a certain political party, it's going to be shut down immediately. Like people just
Mhm.
do not engage like that anymore. And that's the world that we live in. And so I would say focusing on policies themselves is really important. If you're in an area where you're like, any policy work that we do is going to be seen in a certain way, there's a lot of education work that you can do that's not policy related. We, as an organization and as a branch network, do a lot of work on policy, but we have a lot of work that's not policy related at all, right? We do a lot of scholarships. We do a lot of other things for K through 12. So it may be that you would focus on those things a little bit more.
And that's a great point that I've had this conversation in a different circle with a different nonprofit person that I know that's also part of a nonpartisan nonprofit of there's kind of a movement to say we're not going to stop talking about DEI, but we're going to actually use the words.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, as you were just speaking about though in our climate, using the words sometimes totally shifts the perception of the person you're talking to. And so if you're saying like we advocate for pay
Yeah.
equity, that isn't the off-putting thing of saying we advocate for DEI like equity for women and pay. And so I really appreciate that point being brought up too of if some of it is just how we talk about things. So
I think it's also helpful to understand the differences between diversity, equity, and inclusion. They are different concepts.
right.
And it may be helpful to sort of say, well, inclusion means to me that when you come to a branch meeting, or it's first time at a branch event, that you feel welcome. Who's going to disagree with that, right? So a lot of times it's about sort of maybe rephrasing. I'm not saying we don't use the words. We absolutely should be using all of the words. We can use the words in a way that helps people understand what we mean by them. And sometimes breaking them up and not just saying diversity, equity, and inclusion can be helpful to that as well.
Great. In the chat, we have Deb Kennedy asking, are you familiar with the group Indivisible?
Yes, we are familiar with them. If you don't know them, they've been behind a lot of the rallies that we've seen lately. They do a ton of work for organizing. So we're familiar with them. I would say the guidance that I think it's gonna come out early next week. We've had a lot of questions about, can we participate in protests and things like that. So we're going to be issuing some guidance next week about that. And Indivisible, I believe, says that they are nonpartisan. I think some of their stuff
Mhm.
does lean in that direction. So again, policy over people or politics. So again, if you're focused on policy, I think you'll be okay in that. And so, when you're looking at these different opportunities to, have your branch participate in, right? I'm talking about your branch as a whole or the state. You as an individual, go for it. I've gone to a bunch of indivisible things in my, sort of private capacity. But if you're putting AUW's name on it, that's where you really have to say, is this against a certain administration or is this about a policy?
I agree. And if they're anything like the ones we've been seeing here, there could be opportunities for that. Right now,
Yeah.
some of them are pretty broad, but we are seeing that they're kind of refining to um, more
Mm.
specific topics as things come up, unfortunately, since I think it's been like whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
I'm just to share with everybody, and some of you know, many of you know, I'm actually a nonpartisan elected official. I'm mayor of Traverse City, and that is something that we all talk about and something to think about that Shannon just touched on. Organizing and going out to doing something like that with your branch is one thing. Individually, if you are the president of your branch or hold an officer's position or anything like that, you still have First Amendment rights, and they do not, as long as you're not saying you're there representing AAW of Michigan, you and half your branch could go do something together that you feel like you want to organize, but as long as it's not under your kind of you be careful if it's under the banner of AAW doing it as an official thing, but as individuals, we all have our rights and should feel free to be able to exercise those. Um, we have somebody here in the chat really quick that says there's a rally today at Hart Plaza at 1 p.m. for education. Mary Pollock just clarified that at noon at the Capitol in Lansing. So there's two more gatherings happening in Michigan today. And we think we'll see a lot more of that. So good to have. Yes, Deb Kennedy also just jumped in now. We have a program. Leah may mention our program sponsorship of the SAVE Act.
Yes, the Big Rapids branch just
Ah.
had a speaker from Voters Not Politicians, which is also a nonpartisan organization here in Michigan, do a presentation on Stop the SAVE Act. We were pretty explicit that this is our policy position on the SAVE Act. And there are also some state initiatives and bills in the state legislature that mimic the SAVE Act. So there was a lot of discussion of those two items also at the presentation.
And I'll add too really quickly, Leah Monger, our state services director here, just spoke, and she has been doing a great job for us on our Instagram and Facebook of creating very well branded um posts with when AAW does issue, which we've seen more now than in the what 50, almost 15 years I've been a member, which in a good way, that we are seeing much more of our updating, such as when Linda McMahon was up for our Department of Education. I appreciate National coming straight out and saying we are opposed to this. That can be said from top down. And Leah's been good about putting some images out there. So if you engage in social media, that way of join in the different ways we can join, that's a great way if we are if national and local or an AW mission are sharing things on social media, that helps us too, I would imagine. So actually, can you speak to that, Shannon, a little bit? I know the strategic plan is coming out. You mentioned there's going to be some images to share for newsletters and such. I know we have a wide array of ages, that we do tend to age and be a little older, but you know, I'm just curious a little bit about the how AEW, and it might not be different than what it is, but just explaining the philosophy, where you're at strategically of communications like that to the broader audience, not just the newsletters and such that might come to us as members.
Yeah, it's a really great question. And you sort of have to be thinking all the time about how we're reaching people and then how are we measuring that, right? How do we know we're reaching people? We do have actually very, very high open rates for our newsletter. So that's Mission in Action and
That's
Membership
great.
Matters, which is great. But if you're still getting, I think they're like 35 or 40%, which is like unheard of for email. But you're still missing 60% of the people that you're emailing, right? Even if you have a great open rate. So really thinking about how we can reach people in different ways is really important to us. And thinking about how that technology changes over time, right? We've seen social media become very popular, but even within social media, different platforms can be emphasized and de-emphasized. So we primarily use Facebook and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of our biggest success areas in terms of reaching folks. So if you're not already on LinkedIn, really great way to follow both AUW and Gloria. Our CEO, Gloria Blackwell, does a ton on LinkedIn. So you're always going to see our press releases and things like that. But there's a lot of other stuff out there, right? And we can't necessarily re-forward everything, right? We work in coalition on a lot of different issues that we're not going to be front and center on. But social media is a great way for us to uplift some of that work as well. And so if you're not following us there, I would recommend that you do that. So social media is really important to us. We still do a lot of email, as you know. We've considered doing some things like texting programs. Those are hard to administer on a whim, so we want to make sure that we're very careful about that before we do that. And there's all opt-in and all of that sort of thing. So that's something we're considering. And then it's about being in spaces where you can reach new audiences. So part of what the board of directors has been talking about for quite a while is how do we reach new audiences, right? How do we reach folks that can come in either as national members, as branch members, or potentially just as donors, right? Folks who don't have time to be involved from a membership perspective or don't want that necessarily, but still want to support the work of the organization. So we use a lot of tools that leverage digital technologies. So we get a ton of visitors to our website because we have really great information there on a variety of issues. And so if you come to the website, you may have noticed that if you go somewhere else after being on a page, there may be an ad that pops up that says, hey, why don't you join AAUW, even though I'm no longer on the AAUW website. So we're using technologies like that to be able to try to convert people who come to the website for whatever reason. And you can be really, really granular in how you do that. So if somebody comes to a fellowships and grants application page, right, I can follow them along and say, hey, are you sure you don't want to apply for this grant? So we're using those types of technologies to try to increase the amount of folks into the organization, either through applying for a fellowship or a grant, through joining 2-Minute Activists. That's a really great tool for us. We have about 40,000 folks who are not members, but are part of that action network. And so we're talking a lot about how we engage those folks. How do we try to bring them in to either become members or become donors of the organization? So those are the types of things that we're doing to try to attract new audiences, and hopefully that translates into, members, including in branches.
Fantastic. We had a question here from Mary Jo. Where is civic engagement covered in AAW's mission? Thank you.
Yeah. Great. So civic engagement, voting rights, things like that, is a part of our public policy platform. I can put a link to the public policy priorities in the chat if you would like. It's actually voting going on right now as well on changes to the public policy priorities, which does not include taking out anything about civic engagement. So it is something that we work on pretty much every other years when we really focus on that when there's an election, right? And that can look at a couple of different ways. It can be GOTV efforts. A lot of branches work locally with League of Women Voters. So that's always something that you could consider as well. But it is part of our public policy platform. We do work on civic engagement for sure.
That's great. And thanks for that mention too of League of Women Voters. I know in a lot of communities, they're close partners. And for those who aren't already reaching out, if you have one in your community, sometimes they might even be duplicative of some things that you might be thinking about working on. So always better to strengthen and engage relationships and the efforts than do something separate that you don't need to be out on your own. We have in the comments, a couple comments about there's a Michigan initiative to kind of try to do the SAVE Act in Michigan. And we are a state, for Shannon to know, and in general, if people are not aware, where we can do constitutional changes through votes, election votes. There is a petition going around right now that we as a state have endorsed not signing if you just not signing it. We don't like the SAVE Act nationally. We certainly don't want to see it in the state of Michigan. Leah Monger shared in the chat a Facebook post that she created earlier in the week. Feel free to share that as we're talking about these things. So it's actions like that. I'm just going to throw in 2 cents here. People have probably read in my updates, my president's report and last newsletter. We actually here at the state level are in Michigan are working on we're working on the name. That's our next meeting, but a version of the 2-minute activist, but for our state policies only.
Right.
And so we are a mostly volunteer. We have Leah as a part-time employee, but we're a mostly volunteer board. We have really great public policy people led by Ruth Brown here. And so we're moving to create something like that would be informative and it'll give people that way to react, but wouldn't be probably quite as quick as maybe 2-minute activist. So I join with Shannon saying encourage people to join that, the people we know in our community for the national stuff. We'd hoped by first of the new fiscal year, but it'll probably be in the first quarter where we'll be able to launch that and have we're working kind of on the dotting the I's and T's of how this will function with a developer right now, or getting a developer engaged. So to kind of figure out what that'll look like, but that'll be something that we'll be doing at the state level as well for everybody who's feeling overwhelmed, but also wants to engage. I think 2-minute activist is when we're talking about join is a great way for a lot of people I know that I just send them the link and it's an easy thing for everybody to do, whether they're a member or not. So any other questions here? Chat or hand raise? Yep. And Shannon, thank you for putting the 2-minute activist link in there. Share that well and wide, everyone. I think we'll let you wrap up then and we'll move on to the annual meeting. You're more than welcome to share. We only have some very brief business. It'll not be as long as some of ours have been, but go through the process here. But we certainly would understand if you have other things to do on this beautiful Saturday morning. And we just want to thank you so much, Shannon, for joining us. You're a great speaker. You're a great asset to AAW National. We're really grateful to you for all the work you do for us. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank
Thank you to all of you. And thanks, Amy, for letting me come and speak. My door, virtual or otherwise, is always open. So don't be a stranger. I really, really value the feedback that we get from members because we can't, do what we do at the national office without the branches. So Thanks for the opportunity. I am going to hop off, but have a great rest of your annual meeting, and go get them. Important
Thank you
time.
so much, Shannon. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. Thank you. Great. I think that was really good. I'm glad we were able to integrate that this year of having Shannon and National speak. I think we're all gathered here after a fashion, and so it's good to have that uh larger picture with us today. I am going to now go through the process. We're starting a little later than the estimated time, but again, I think we have we have a little bit of business to attend to, but not a lot. And so inspired with Shannon's messaging and our new vision for AAUW, I am going to, it's hard. I hope everyone will, please bear with me. I'm going between kind of my list of things that I need to do for the meeting and my script for it and toggling to be able to see you all periodically. Leah Monger will be helping me monitor too. Leah, if there's anything massive that you need to grab me for, please feel free to speak up because I might not have the screen up if people are trying to communicate in the chat. So right now at 10:09 a.m. on April 26, 2025, I will call the 103rd AAW of Michigan Annual State Meeting to order. I actually do have a gavel here that I just used. I'm disappointed my camera is not working. It's one that was given to me by the woman who recruited me to AAW. So I feel that's very appropriate for right now. So sorry, moving over to my script now. So I did want to welcome everybody to this 103rd meeting. I'd like to really thank Jan Van Gass and Leah Monger. Their help has been invaluable in organizing this meeting. The entire board has worked hard all year, but Leah and Jan, for those not as familiar, are my organizers, my task people that keep me on task, and just very knowledgeable in general. This is as we all know, we switch between virtual meetings and in person. And the virtual is still relatively new. We've done it a couple of times now, but it's still something we only do every other year and started, around COVID. And so we thank you for bearing with us as we do these things, and moving through this process with us today. And I did want to say, speaking of having Jan and Leah help me organize, due to an oversight on my part, Gloria Blackwell did provide us with a message for the year. It's usually originally in the annual report. It didn't connect with me in time to make it in the annual report that you would have gotten when you registered or when you got that email. Leo will be putting a modified annual report up on the website that will include it, and she just dropped that welcome letter in the report or in the chat here. So we do have a welcome letter / a message to us from Gloria Blackwell for the state of Michigan that will be accessible to all, and it is in the chat right now if you wanted to check that out here. But we're really grateful for her continued outreach to us and conversations with us. We're really grateful, obviously, for Shannon having joined us today as well. So I want to emphasize that because I know, as was mentioned, sometimes we think that there's a disconnect between National and us, but we are all very close, and the work they're doing there is so vitally important. So I want to make sure that everybody reads that as we continue through. I'd also like to now get back to the formalities here. I'd like to introduce our meeting roles for this year's annual meeting. Sally Doty and Ruth Brown have kindly agreed to be our timekeepers. If they want to just like hit a reaction of a clap hand or something so we can see who they are on the screen, that feel free to. Katie Weiss, did Katie join us? I should double check
Please.
on this. There she is. Sorry. Got a little caught up there. Is our secretary. She will be recording all of this and play a part in our roles here. So I'm very grateful for her. She has been wonderful for us. And Jan Van Gass and Liam Monger will eventually be the editors of the minutes for this meeting. So we are grateful for them. And again, their continued organization and support. Jan Van Gass is the credentials chair. if you would like to ask a question or raise a point of order, you can enter it in the chat and you will be recognized. When you vote, a poll will appear on your screen. Please use that to vote. Don't put your vote in the chat or try to raise your hand. Please use the poll that will appear on your screen when it comes to that portion of the show. So now we're going to go to Katie, our Secretary Katie Weiss. We'll now do a roll call of branches. As some of you may recall, we did change our rules for credentials, and we used to have kind of a very complicated system. Roll call of branches was included. This is no longer required for a quorum or actually required for the meeting, but we did want to have, especially because this is virtual and we didn't have a pre-registration, the branches in attendance for the record. So if you are a member of the branch called, please unmute and say here before muting yourself again. You could also use the chat if you're having any kind of problems with your computer. And it is okay if, you know, a couple of people are from the same branch and respond together. So I will now hand it over to Katie to run that and mute myself so you don't get that echo.
Okay, Albion, are you here? Adrian Irish Hills. Ann Arbor?
Here. Two of us.
Okay. Okay. Battle Creek. Gaylord?
Here.
Monroe. Bay City? Grosse Pointe?
Here.
Novi Northville.
Here.
Big Rapids.
Here.
Iron Mountain, Kingsford.
Here.
Plymouth Canton?
Here, there are four of us.
Okay. Birmingham?
Here.
Here.
I think there's 8 of us.
Port Huron?
6, 7 of us.
Just to let everyone know, we don't need an actual count of people anymore for the credentials. We're just seeing which branches are in attendance, but please all feel free to speak up. Go ahead, Katie.
Okay. Anybody from Port Huron? Capital area?
Here, Mary.
Jackson?
Here.
Rochester?
Here.
Cass City? Livonia?
Here.
Romeo? Dearborn? Oh, I see a Dearborn.
I was gonna say, I see a hand waving.
Yes. Ludington? Saginaw? Detroit? Marquette? South Haven?
Here, 2 of us.
To South Haven, thank you. Escanaba? Marshall? Traverse City?
Here.
Farmington? Midland?
Here.
Wyandotte Downriver?
Here.
And I did not catch how many branches were absent. Did anybody count that?
We can do that number later. Again, this isn't official. We just when we were discussing how we wanted to run the meeting with the changes, it's not official. We're not required to do this anymore. We used to have to do that for credentials to hit our quorum, but we did think it would be nice. So I want to thank you all. We have really good representation from around the state. Jan, go ahead.
We have 17 out of 32 branches.
Somebody's really
Thank
quick
you.
about the math, Jan. Thank you. We appreciate that. So, you know, as I said, as I was saying, I think this is actually really great. We don't have to count branches anymore, but great representation for a Saturday morning on a Zoom. I think that really shows our members' dedications here, and I'm really appreciative to that. So in a similar vein, I will now ask to if we have any welcome our past presidents in attendance. If possible, if you are here, and I was trying to kind of keep track, so I'm not 100% sure though. Please unmute and say president if you call your name. Again, this is something we used to require a certain amount of past presidents, but we don't anymore, but we do want to still recognize our past presidents, both in general and if they are here. So Meg Brown,
Joanne Snell,
go ahead. Yep. Go ahead, Katie. Oh, Joanne Snell, sorry, I wasn't on screen, I couldn't see, so I appreciate that that was shared. I missed that for a second. Susan Harris, Harriet Sawyer, Brenda Stevens, Barbara Bonsignore, Carol Wells, Barbara Bonsignore, I did do that right. Ruth Brown, I know she's here. I don't know if she's got her mic working. Mickey Adele,
here.
Kathy Shaw, Sally Doty,
Here.
Janet Watkins, Elizabeth Haynes, Dr. Penny Larson, Deb Kennedy,
Here.
Jan Van Gass,
Here,
and Sheila Blair, and she is not here. So again, I want to thank all of our past presidents who are both here and those who could not attend today. Almost 1 year into my term here, I have a whole new understanding of all the work you did, though I think all of us are always grateful, everybody who has stepped up to the role. So thank you for that. Next, we'll move on to our committee reports. Jan Van Gass will now give the credentials report.
okay, first of all, is anyone participating at your computer with more than one member? I don't think so, but
You can unmute or put it in the chat if you are, though.
right. Okay, and Lynn, I had you twice, but I believe now, Lynn O'Neill, but I believe now you're just once. So we're good. So we have 40 members in Zoom, which is what our credentials report is, 40 members.
Thank you so much for that. For those who ever went through the process previously, that is a much quicker and easier way than we've ever done credentials before. So thank you for that, Jan. Now we're going to the proposed meeting rules. We're doing the adoption of the meeting rules. Here, for those of you who are following at home, is where we're going to kind of start referencing the annual meeting report. This will give page numbers so you can follow along. We will be reading things out loud and other things if you don't have it immediately in front of you, but if you wanted to follow along, there will be page numbers for you to do so. And so with that, the proposed meeting rules can be found on page 9 in the annual report. Please review those quickly if you have not already. Is there a motion to adopt the meeting rules?
I move the adoption of the meeting rules.
The question is on the adoption of the meeting rules. Is there any objection to the adoption of the meeting rules? If so, raise your hand using the raise hand feature in Zoom or put it in the chat, please. There being no objection, the meeting rules have been adopted. Now we'll do the adoption of the agenda. The next item is the agenda, which is on page 4. If there is no objection, the agenda will be adopted. The chair reserves the right to make changes with the approval of the group, the assembly. Is there any objection to the I'm sorry, I'm struggling this morning. Is there any objection to the adoption of the agenda? Again, please raise your hand or enter into the chat. Okay. There being none, the agenda is adopted. We'll move on now to the meeting minutes of our 102nd annual meeting, and I will hand this to Jan.
The minutes of the 102nd annual meeting were approved by the State Board of Directors. Those minutes are found on pages 11 through 15 of the annual report. If there is no objection, the minutes of this annual meeting will be adopted for the record. Is there any objection? As there is no objection, the minutes of the 102nd annual meeting will be filed in the record. The members of the members who have been appointed by the president to review the minutes of this meeting and present them to the board for approval are Katie Weiss, Jan Van Gass, and Leah Monger.
Thank you for that, Jan. We'll now move to review the report of the Vice President, Sheila Blair. The report can be found on page 19 in the annual report. You'll notice the report reflects revenue and expenses from July 1, 2024 through March 31st, 2025. So this is not our complete fiscal year, which would run through the end of June. Sheila's full report is in the annual report and will be located on the AAW website early part of next week for those who are not here, so that we have that transparency. Sheila Blair is not here today. The finance vice president's report will be filed for audit. Reports from our other officers. Most of the full reports of the officers, staff, and coalitions can be found in the annual report, sent in the annual meeting invitation. And I think Leah might have it to post it in the chat. We'll try to do that here. The full version and edited will be up early next week, including Gloria Blackwell's welcome message, as was mentioned before. So they will also be there for everyone to see going forward. Next item of business is the AAW funds report on page 29. Funds Director Mary Jane Kearns will announce the largest branch donors. So Mary Jane, I'll hand it over to you now.
The top 10 branches in order were Ann Arbor, Birmingham, Wyandotte Downriver, Midland, Battle Creek, Rochester, Livonia, Plymouth Canton, Marquette, and Port Huron. The top 10 branches in per capita giving were Wyandotte Downriver, Midland, Birmingham, Ann Arbor, Battle Creek, Big Rapids, Plymouth Canton, Marquette, Port Huron, and Livonia.
Thank you for that, Mary Jane. And I'd like to let everyone know, I did see Leah put the annual report in the chat. And I just wanted to direct everybody to page 23. Leah created a very visually fun and interesting by the numbers on page 23, and take a moment, as well as recognizing our donor branches on that. And I think we should do it right now as well, taking a moment to recognize the branches who achieved 5-star recognition. That also includes some other interesting facts about AAW for this year of Michigan. So take a moment to look at that now and maybe in the future. It's a great one. We can probably even provide you that image if anybody during their annual meeting or fall kickoff wants to share some of that. It's a great resource. So thank you to Leah Monger for creating such a fun graphic for all of us, and congratulations to all the branches that worked on getting 5-star accreditation and recognition. That is something that really helps to connect us with our mission, and it's really important. So thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is the report of the bylaws director. The committee chair is Jan Van Gass from Kingsford Iron Mountain Branch. The members of the bylaws committee are Jan Van Gass, Iron Mountain Kingsford, Ruth Brown, she's also the chair. Ruth Brown, Jackson Branch, Mary Mostagine from Ann Arbor, Phyllis Relia from Rochester Branch, and Marcia Wainio from the Iron Mountain Kingsford Branch. And I'll hand over to Jan.
The proposed bylaws amendment to the AAUW of Michigan bylaws that will be voted on by you, the members present at the annual meeting, is the following. This is a big one. I'm being sarcastic. Delete the word auditor or auditing committee in Article 13, Section 2B5, and in their place, insert the words Financial Review Committee. The rationale is that this reflects current practice and aligns with other sections of the bylaws. This motion doesn't require a second because it comes from committee. So, on the bottom of this is on page 32 in the annual report, and I've included what the current bylaw says, the committee's recommended changes, and what the bylaw would look like if adopted, and also the rationale. So please raise your hand if you would wish to speak on this issue, or you can type it in the comments. And if you want to speak, please state clearly if you are for or against this change. So the question is, I don't see a flurry of activities. So therefore, the question is to delete the words auditor or auditing committee in Article 13, Section 2B5, and in their place, insert the words financial review committee. Please pay attention now. Please vote in the poll on your screen. Yay. Okay. So we need you all to vote. And Leah, I assume you'll tell us when we're done.
And Leah, for the count, just so you know, it's not letting me vote because I'm also a
Yeah,
host.
I can't vote you.
Yeah, so the number will be off by like 1 or 2. So
Yeah, I don't mind just stating I'm for it.
me too.
Right.
All
So
right.
controversial.
I have 34 people who have voted,
Out of 40.
35. Any last takers?
And a couple that went to get breakfast.
Oh, 36. All right, shall I end the poll?
I think we're in good shape. That is certainly a majority.
The voting is closed. The motion is adopted.
All right. Is that cleared from everybody else's screen now? Okay. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, so now we'll move to the report of the nominating committee. The nominating committee chair was Katie Weiss from the Birmingham branch, who wrote the full nominating report on page 34 of the annual report. Her committee members were Leanne Baumler of Traverse City branch, Sally Doty of the Birmingham branch, Kelly K. Martin of the Battle Creek branch, and myself, who is a member of the Traverse area branch. Katie, please present the 2024 election slate.
The nominee for president-elect is Barb Duran. Her photo and bio may be found on page 34 of your program. The nominee for membership vice president is Eva Habib, seeking a second term. Her photo and bio are also found on page 34. The nominee for finance vice president is Sheila Blair, seeking a second term. Her photo and bio are also found on page 34.
You have heard the report of the nominating committee. Nominations from the floor are in order at this time. Are there nominations from the floor for president-elect? If so, please raise your hand or enter it in the chat. Seeing none. Are there nominations from the floor for membership vice president? Please again raise your hand or put it in the chat. Seeing none. Sorry, I'm moving my script here. Are there nominations from the floor for finance vice president? Please raise your hand or enter it in the chat. Seeing none, we will proceed then. There being no further nominations, I declare the nominations are closed. The following have been nominated: Barb Duran for president-elect, Eva Habib for membership vice president, and Sheila Blair for finance vice president. Please vote using the poll on your screen for Barb Duran for president-elect, And we are doing these one by one, even though they are slate, just for the purpose of our functions here.
We're at 37 votes.
Perfect, out of the 40, and you and I don't show up. So, although I am in favor, just for the record.
Yeah, me too. All right, so we're ready to end?
Yep, end the poll. We're good to go on that. Toggling not successfully here. Why is it not letting? Sorry, my computer just is not cooperating with me for the moment. Boy, this is really annoying. Sorry, hold on just one moment. This is a technical difficulty on my end, as has been the theme of the morning. So the polls are closed. I declare the election of Barb Duran. Next, please use the poll on your screen to vote for Eva Habib, membership vice president.
We are currently at 36 participants.
It's only been 20 seconds. We'll just give another 10 in case the other person wants to jump in, and just to be fair. But I think we've now hit 30 seconds with majority 94% reporting. Well, now that 97, we got that last person. Go ahead.
All right.
Okay, let me do that. The polls are closed. I declare the election of Eva Habib. Next, please please vote using the poll on your screen for popped up on my screen before I could finish reading. To vote for Sheila Blair for finance vice president. You all are so quick on this. I really appreciate that. All right, we've got 37. I'm comfortable with that number again.
Okay.
All right. The polls are closed. I declare the election of Sheila Blair. So there being no unfinished business, we will move to new business. Under new business, we will move to the installation of officers. This is a time when I as the president or the other presidents do some reflecting as we're looking at introducing, in this case, people who are returning to our board. But I think it's still important for us to reflect on us as AAUW. And a common theme right now I hear, and Shannon addressed it a little in her comments too, is from our members, is what can I do? Many of us feel pulled in multiple directions to help whenever we see some kind of need. Some of us jump right in, sometimes even stretching ourselves thin. Some of us feel paralyzed trying to decide what we can actually do. We all feel a common desire to help, though. It's why we are all members of this organization. We want to make an impact. And when we come together, that impact is undeniable. Just like the motto of our nation, out of many, we become one. Today, newly elected officers of AAUW of Michigan will be installed. Individually, they are strong, dynamic, and inspirational women. Together, they've already been shaping AAUW of Michigan with their creative ideas and willingness to serve our collective needs. President-elect Barb Duran, when I think of doers, I have met many in my years of AAUW, and Barb ranks among the best. She readily lends her talents at local, state, and national level. Barb, as president-elect, will you bring your energy, innovation, and organization to this role? Please say, I will.
I will.
Congratulations on your new office. I'm looking forward to
Thank
working
you.
with you
You
more
as well.
in this capacity. Next on to membership vice president Eva Habib. Membership is a crucial role in AAUW, asking leaders to connect people and bring them into our organization Sorry, it just has me hooked. Makes us stronger. Eva brings energy and empathy to this role, as shown by guiding us through the addition of 2 new branches in this last year, while always think about current members' needs. Eva, as membership president and vice president, will you accept these responsibilities and pledge to motivate and provide leadership and guidance to all members? Please say I will.
I will.
Thank you, Eva, for continuing on. Congratulations on the office.
Thank you.
Finance Chair Sheila Blair. Sheila does not just have the ability to run numbers, but also brings a flair and vision for what we as an organization can do that is unique in this role. Sheila is not able to attend today. She is working, which will be no surprise to many of us because she is that multitask person. But she will be sworn in at the board retreat this summer, which is our next board meeting. Now, to all members, each and every one of you has talent and interests you are passionate about. Individually, you are caring and dedicated people, whatever dedicated can be for you at this time. When we come together, whether it's merely paying dues or holding an office, we are all powerful collectively. Will you, the members of AAW of Michigan, now pledge to continue to offer your support, talent, and even consider stepping up at local and state leadership in the coming year and beyond? Please feel free to unmute and say we will or I will collectively.
I will.
I
We
will.
will.
I
will.
I will.
That was
I
beautiful.
will.
Thank
I
you
will.
all. Thank you all. That chorus of voices was actually very beautiful, and I'm very grateful for all of you. I now declare that the new AAW of Michigan officers are duly installed. Please join me in welcoming them. There's, you can hit your reaction buttons for the, party thing or clap, or clap on screen quietly on mute. And with that, I will now move to the announcements. I wanted to make a few announcements. Remember to reach out to all State board members if you have any questions, first and foremost. The website is also really great place to start for news and to see share what's going on with your branch. Leah Monger does a great job of helping us with that and keeping on top of it. We've seen great response from branches sending events and newsletters from the website. So make sure that you do keep connected with us on that. If you do have things to add to the website, there's also a way to do that. So please feel free. We are, again, trying to make sure that we all feel connected. We are all part of this larger organization. Just a reminder of some upcoming dates that are very important. May 13th, AAW National has our elections right now. And that is the last day. That's when voting closes. So make sure you do vote in the next couple of weeks here. June 30th is AAW National Fiscal 2025 Annual Branch Surveys are due. So you got an email about this from National last week. If you're branch president or had, members of your board are connected to your branch of members, remind them to fill that survey out, please. But yeah, that was in an email last week, and I'm sure we will see from National. I'm sure we will get another reminder here over the next few weeks. So keep eyes out for that, and remind, if you're not a branch leadership, remind your branches that that's a very important thing to do. Also, save the date for August 23rd. That is the Women's Equality Day Luncheon. Registration is coming soon. The committee is actively working on that and planning it, and it's always a really great event. It is in the Southeast Michigan area, so that's easier for some than others. But it is on weekends, so even if you're not there, think about joining us for that. It's a great event that we do and we sponsor, but it's has some representation from a lot of organizations in Michigan. So with that, I want to thank you all for participating in the 103rd annual meeting of AAW of Michigan. Thanks to our bylaws being a relatively quick fix this year, we had a pretty quick meeting. So, but I want to thank you all for hanging in here on Zoom and on a Saturday morning and for joining us for all of these messages. As I mentioned, I'm going to officially close the meeting in a moment here, but please hang on. We're going to have a few words from Leslie Carpenter, our DEI person, and just kind of wrap it up with that. So I got to find my gavel here, even though you can't see it. I now adjourn the 103rd annual meeting. So I will now hand the mic over um, to Leslie Carpenter, but I wanted to say something first, and I say this in kind of the spirit of what I said when I had you all join me in that affirmation. I think sometimes I know there's a lot of you who have done a lot of work over the years, and we don't try to get blood from a stone here. But I think there are also people who participate and think that the burden of joining maybe the state organization or maybe even your local branch can be a burden or a major time commitment. And not gonna lie that it is a time commitment, but it is also very, very valuable. And I use this to say, last spring when we had our meeting, we didn't have any takers for diversity for our diversity chair. And I think there was some concerns about being qualified for it. And I, as you can see by my picture here, have even served at it as in this position on the state board for a year. And I was hesitant myself. And I think we all need to remember that the knowledge we bring is important. The experience we bring is important. And I wanted to say this because I think I give credit to Leslie that she very carefully considered taking this position before agreeing to it, and had some reservations because of her own background, maybe having more privilege than others. And I think that's really important. It made me appreciate her more for acknowledging that and seeing the tact and the way she was taking things, or how seriously she was taking the role. So we certainly do want to take our role seriously here at AAUW, but we are also working to the best of our abilities as a almost completely volunteer organization. And I think that's important. So I'm using you as my intro of you, Leslie, is a little bit of a stump speech here, but also to really share that I wanted everybody to
Okay, very
understand
nice.
what you
Shushing
thought
now.
about it. She's like, stop talking about me. But now I'm gonna hand it off to Leslie, and with the greatest of confidence, introduce her as our new chair for DEI and let her do a presentation here.
All right, I just want to thank you so much. And Leah, if you are able to get the wheel of privilege and power up, that would help. And just want to remind people that there is a DEI toolkit. If you have not checked it out on the website, it would be nice to take time to go look at it. And it probably, I don't know if I would say once a month or once every other meeting, maybe touch on it at some point in your branch meeting. And maybe that has to be discussed at the board level before the president or other board members would agree to chat about DEI even minimally at meetings. But it is, I think it's important to circle back and remind people. It's almost like some of the members may have forgotten the mission statement of AAUW and that AAUW does value diversity and equity and inclusion. And so if the national is supporting that, I think it's important that the state and the branches, obviously the state knows that, but the branches are aware of that. And I think it's okay to give a gentle nudge, a gentle reminder. We don't want to push anybody out of the group. No, we want to hold and retain all members if possible, but it's an important time in our country, and it's important to step up. I don't think we need to hide the fact that AAUW is supportive of DEI efforts. And it's not just, girls and women. Yes, that's great. I'm fully support improving the lives of girls and women, but there are other advantages and other aspects of DEI for us to be aware of. And if we're not aware, it's okay to learn something new. You start where you are and you move forward from there. So on the wheel of power and privilege, I would think people have seen this at some point, but it may be one of those things that is 10 years old, and maybe it's good to have a refresher. So you can just take a look and find out how close you are to power and privilege in your everyday life. It's not just religion and race or gender. So people, it's okay to refer to this power and privilege. And it's okay if you are very close to the center of all the power and privilege, that's fine. But it's nice to be aware of where other people in your community may fall on that. So encourage your branches to refer to DEI Toolkit. It's on the AAUW website. And I just put up power and privilege. It's just sort of a basic, it all starts here. And there are different aspects of DEI. We can branch out from just thinking about it as, race, religion. And I hope to be available to branches if they would like to use resources and try to improve or spread some DEI knowledge. And that's all, short and sweet.
I was talking while muted. Thank you, Leslie. That was a great introduction and a good reminder that, I think it's been kind of a theme here, that inclusion and equity are not political. They're not partisan. They are being human. And so with that, I just a couple of last minute notes for everybody. Ruth Brown, as well as working on the new public policies with her committee, as well as being an active part of our committee to kind of do our next phase here of oh, sorry, Barb, did you have a question or want to speak to the DEI real quick?
Actually, I wanted to just make a comment about Nick Whistle. I didn't know if you were going to have like closing, anything that I could say about the Nick Whistle
Actually,
this
yeah,
year.
please go right ahead. Yep.
Yeah, so as college university director at the state level, a lot of people have had questions about Nick Whistle. It is not run by AAUW anymore, but we are still participating. And the organization has put out the registration link. I sent it to the college university relations emails that I had access to through Leah's statewide roster. And I also sent it to the branch presidents if I have your email, if it's correct. So it is May 28th through 30th in College Park, Maryland. Your branches can offer scholarships to young women or men who want to go. It is Nick Whistle, but if they want to go to the event and you want to sponsor them through a scholarship or your foundation or funds that you may have set aside for that, then go on the website, go to the registered link and check it out and make sure you have all that information. And if you need more clarification or you have questions, please seek me out.
Thank you for that reminder, Barb. I do remember that got covered in a smaller meeting, but thank you for sharing that at large with this gathering, because that is a very important one. If you're just wanting to share some news, please also use the chat. I can share it out. I'm to see some people just put, oh, okay, Leah, if you can grab the Nick Whistle site, somebody requested it. If not, we can send it out after. Karen, I see your hand is up. Was this about Nick Whistle?
Yes.
Yep, go right ahead.
I just wanted to say that we, along with the Livonia branch, collaborate with Schoolcraft College to send students. And scholarships aren't available, as I understand it, to us unless we donate an equivalent amount to national. Anyway, regardless of that, the Schoolcraft College thinks so much of the program that they've committed to providing scholarships for, I think it's 6 students from Schoolcraft College. So they're going to provide the money for the scholarships, and Livonia and Northville Novi are going to do what they normally do. And I thought that was pretty amazing.
That's really great. And Barb's nodding her head. So that seems to be what the funding is. So thank you for sharing that, Karen, and for the good point of it's kind of a matching now. Mary, is this about
It's about Nick Whistle.
Yep, go right ahead. Yep.
And I wonder if Barb Duran is aware of Ann Arbor, which Ann Arbor branch has committed to sending 10 people paying for their transportation and so forth. In fact, we have 11 we're going to send. You know all about them, and you know our Alan Pandy, who is our Nick Whistle person, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
it has worked out beautifully for us.
And I appreciate that. And those girls, I appreciate your branch for doing that. When I say scholarship, any branch can just donate or set aside an amount of money, 2,000, 3,000, just pay for their trip, whatever your branch wants to do. That's considered a scholarship to those girls.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's wonderful. Thanks, Mary.
Yeah.
And thank you. I wanted to pull that back. I think to Barb's point, the comments or the where we're at right now is not that, you know, Nick Whistle still exists. AEW is not the presenter of Nick Whistle the way it had been, but we're still engaged. Branches still are encouraged to send people to it. It's still an amazing program. And Barb's doing a great job of keeping communication of this as we've kind of transitioned in her current role, although she'll take on a new one on July 1 too, of being president-elect, but right now she is that CU rep. So Leah did put some of the resources and the events in the chat. I know Barb's always available too if you have questions. But just wanted to emphasize that it's not going away. The format has just, I should say that the structure has changed, but it is still something that we support and are grateful for the branches that can support and get students there as well. I did want to point out what I was wanted to start saying was, as many of you first know, I wanted to emphasize that if you are in branch leadership, your state your state counterpart, so programs, president, everything else, about quarterly are planning to host our counterpart discussions. So keep eyes out for that from each of the respective roles. That's just one way we want to continue to have these conversations so that people can be up to date on what's going on with CU, that we can be up to date with what's going on and share just ideas like with programming. So I just want to emphasize and remind people that that is something that we're doing as a state and out there. I know Ruth, as I was saying, who's been also working on the new public policy goals, working with us on this committee to kind of do what's the next iteration for AAUW Michigan's public policy outreach. She's been talking about doing a public policy training, a way that we can all kind of learn how to engage. And so we'll be talking with her and potentially offering that up as something that kind of a workshop that we'll do. And we're looking to do that with a lot more of these topic sensitive, larger topics, rather than wedging them into an online meeting like this, or just leaving them in a newsletter, to encourage and connect again more with all of you and, you know, all members at large with our branch counterparts. You know, I think we'll have, as Leslie iterated, and actually as Shannon kind of put, is being more flexible. This will allow us to be more nimble as we're trying to address concerns within the organization with everything going on right now. And you know, as well as wins. I would love to believe that Michigan especially, we still have some pretty good momentum. There might be some good things coming out that we're going to kind of rally around and support. So I think the emphasis today has been, we've got a lot of all of you, every single person in here, all of our members are just really amazing people. I never am failed to, when I go to any meetings, when I'm invited virtually, when we're at conferences and conventions, to be so impressed with everybody out there and the things that you do in your life, your your brilliance. I've yet to meet somebody who is not just fascinating to talk to and has a lot of really great information or experiences. That all of you are really amazing individuals, and collectively we are a powerhouse organization. And I think everything that we're doing over the next year, in the face of a lot of adversity right now, nationally and, you know, everywhere, we are well equipped to join together to fight where we can, to uphold our values and to be help still, even though it feels like we're beating against the tide, help us as a nation and us certainly in our own communities and in our state still work towards making this the best place, these the best places we can be. And so all of you, I'm continue to be inspired by you. I'm really grateful to my board here today. Since this is our annual meeting, I can't emphasize enough how much great hard work they do. I just wanted to really emphasize again, in the face of everything else that's going on, and over the last few years of having branches here and there leaving, Eva and Sheila Blair and Jan Van Gas helped with a lot of the national details. We brought in 2 new branches this year. That's a great thing to do. That's really amazing in a time where we feel like we're losing ground sometimes. So let's celebrate our wins together because it's really important to do that. As my therapist always says, they even drank tea during the war in the UK. We have our moments that we can celebrate, but we also are preparing to step up and do what we've always done, which is to advocate and to be strong members and strong women out there. So with that, and even with us starting late with my technical difficulties and a really great conversation with Shannon that went a little long, but I think we all got a lot out of it. We are ending a hair under 11 a.m. So I will leave you all to go enjoy this day. And thank you so much for all you do and who you are. And we will be in touch in various ways in the near future. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Everyone, we're just going to give another second here while everybody kind of can join us. If you are not already, make sure that you're muted. We have a big crowd today, so we want to make sure that everything goes smoothly. There'll be some options for when we can have you all raise your hand to participate if you feel the need. And also making use of the chat. So I think many of us at this point in the last few years have become very familiar with Zoom, but just to let everybody know that there's the chat button at the bottom of your screen. If you're on a laptop, might be in your 3 lines in the corner of your iPad that you have to click on. But you'll use that chat in a couple points during the annual meeting when we start that formal process. If you need to, hopefully you won't because everything will be running smoothly, but please do feel free to jump in and use that at any point. I just want to apologize. Formally, I'll just say that I'm up here. I'm going to rename myself in just a second. I've had part of the reason why we're letting you in a little late is I've had some technical difficulties here. And I just need to rename myself and we can get kind of started here. Okay. So for those who have not, in this case, seen my face, I first want to apologize. Part of the reason why we got started late is my video has been weird and wonky this morning. So this is roughly what I look like, but you will not see me in action and movement. So I apologize because I do have a big part in the show, but it's going to be a static picture. But you can always see gallery view and look at the faces of a bunch of your fellow AAWMI members from around the state. I love seeing this at this point in the morning. I'm Amy Shamrow. I'm your president as of last July. And I'm very excited to be with you all this morning for our annual meeting. For those who might not have read all the correspondences, during COVID, we had decided as a state that every other year we would do a virtual annual meeting and meet in person. So first mark your calendars because next spring we'll be in person again. We hope to see many of you in person with us so we can kind of come together and see each other face to face. But in the meantime, we are coming together virtually this year. For those who have participated virtually in the past, we're going to do it slightly different, but not really, because we don't want you to feel like you're going to be on Zoom staring at a computer for the next 3 hours. That's not the intention. But rather than just meeting and just going through the annual meeting script and doing the perfunctory things, we are very fortunate to have Shannon Wolf from National joining us, and I'll turn over to her in a moment. And then we're going to go through the annual meeting portion and install our officers for next year and all the other good stuff that we do with that. And then we're also going to hear from our new, and I use that in air quotes if you could see me right now, DEI person who is Leslie Carpenter. She would have been appointed at the meeting last year, but we didn't have anybody. So she kindly stepped up to take on the role in the interim between last annual meeting and this one. So we'll have her speak to us a little bit after the formal meeting just to kind of introduce herself, but also as I've been speaking at branches, that does seem to be a very main concern for us in the last 6 to 8 weeks or so. And will probably be for another, I think I saw it was like 1,132 days. Um, and so just talking a little overview, but we will be engaging a lot more with Leslie as AAUW of Michigan and offering out different programming and information to you in the coming months. But wanted to have that as a separate thing from the annual meeting because she was supposed to be joining us last year and or I shouldn't say her position should have been joining us last year, but she kindly stepped up after. So we want to do that a little separate of the annual meeting at the very end. So when we adjourn the meeting, please hang out for another minute or 5 minutes-ish. So again, this won't be much longer than the previous annual meetings, but we did want to add a little bit more because it is a chance for all of us to gather. So having someone from Nashville join us, we're very grateful. Having a little bit of an information from our board and then taking care of the meat of the business in between. So that's kind of how we're going to run things today. It looks like we've got a pretty good crowd gathered this morning. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us here. It's not quite a beautiful day here in Traverse City, but it's going to be, and we have some sun and it's not raining like last night. So I hope you all are looking forward to a lovely Saturday too. So I will get this show on the road. And with that, I wanted to formally introduce, as I've been kind of doing a rundown housekeeping here, but formally start our programming for this morning and welcome Shannon Wolf. For those of you who don't know, she's Managing Director and Chief of Staff for AAW National. She's been with the Brookings Institute, which I think many of us are at least mildly policy interested, if not full policy wonks. And we're very familiar with Brookings. She's had a 20-year career in nonprofits, including Red Cross. She's worked with Harvard Medical School. She has an economics degree, which I attempted and did not make, so I know how hard that can be, as well as a master's degree in government from the esteemed University of Virginia. So with that introduction, I'm going to hand the spotlight over to Shannon Wolf. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Amy. I really appreciate that introduction and the opportunity to be with you all this Saturday. I love being able to connect with members out in the field when I can and on Zoom or any other virtual platform when I can as well. There's a couple of really familiar faces to me here, Jan Van Gass, Eva and Leslie Carpenter, some really amazing folks that I've had the real privilege to work with in my time at AAUW, which I've been here for a little over 7 years now. And I have with me today Brisket the cat in the back. He's joining us. He's behaving for right now. If that changes, I will go on mute and kick him out, but we're going to hope that he can behave himself this morning. So I am really excited to talk to all of you today because we know what is going on in our country right now. And I think it really reinforces the importance and the need for organizations like AAUW and all of the work that you do. Thrilled to have Amy talk about policy and Michigan's passion for that. That's a really important area of where AAUW is headed and is right now. So we're going to talk about a couple of things this morning. I'm going to give you a rundown about what's going on at the national office. We're going to be launching a new strategic plan in a couple of weeks. And so I want to talk through and give you all a preview of what that's going to look like. And really where we are in this moment is a really important moment in time. I think we're all feeling a lot of emotions. I feel that every day. There's a lot of things that are really scary happening in this country, particularly around the issues that we care about. Amy already mentioned diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's really important, and we're seeing that being attacked in multiple levels, and really attacks on every level of education right now. And I know you're all feeling that in Michigan as well. I was reading about, University of Michigan's closing of their DEI programs. And that's obviously really related to this larger issue of federal funding, right? We're seeing funding cuts all over the place. We're seeing lawsuits related to funding cuts, but those issues are interrelated. I do have some sympathy for colleges and universities who are put in these positions of saying, if we do this thing, then we are not going to have funding anymore. And we're not talking about a small amount of money. I think you all know, right? This is entire university systems. In many cases, they're